Uganda had an unfortunate incident, the July 11th bombing, and Uganda came up with counter-terrorism measures, and we saw the transportation of suspects from a neighboring country, and also saw a detention of some suspects. Do you think there was a violation of human rights?
And I think the answer is yes, we are concerned. And let me give you the issue about the 13 Kenyan suspects who were extradited. In fact, it was done in a very clandestine manner. Extradition laws, which Ugandan Kenyan laws, didn't seem to be followed. And particularly the case of Kimadi, who is now in the prison here in Uganda. We actually requested to see him in the last 2 days, and we were refused permission. So all of these anti-terrorism measures need to be systematically reviewed. We need an independent inquiry of all the allegations which are being made in the aftermath of July. So because otherwise we feel that many of these things are happening in quite an arbitrary way.
But what is your take on the issue of the Public Order Management Bill? Do you think this is out to muzzle the freedom of assembly for some people, or what is your take on this?
And it's not just the obvious anti-terrorism measures. There are now new laws coming into place, the Public Order Management Bills, the media bills, etc. And all of these have come in the wake of July. And all of these we feel don't have adequate safeguards. Some of them should be simply withdrawn, like the media bill, Public Order Management Bill, we feel they should be withdrawn. But the other one, like the Interception of Communications Act, as they call it, that needs to be reviewed to make sure that you have due judicial process in place. And I mean, if you ask the average, anybody, it doesn't have to be somebody who's an expert on law. I think we fully support the government's right to protect the citizens, but there has to be a fair process in place. Otherwise, the worry is that you can selectively start targeting people you don't like. Now, given that we're running into election mode, it's very easy to selectively target people, and we have seen already an increase in violence because of the electoral process, and this is likely to get worsened. So,
what can Uganda do to prevent electoral violence?
And what we are saying from our perspective is, there is an electoral code of conduct. Let all parties abide by that. Amnesty doesn't have a position on elections per se, but to the extent these are fundamental freedoms, the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of association, peaceful assembly, all of these, we feel like the Public Order Management Act, all of this is likely to constrain these spaces. And it's so important for Uganda, as we run into the election process, to show to the world that we are serious about giving our citizens full voice, full participation, particularly the weakest, the women, the weaker sections.
How has Uganda performed in its role in the African Union and the United Nations Security Council and the Human Rights Commission?
Uganda's, in many ways has been a very progressive force on the international stage, and we fully welcome that. We work very closely with the ambassadors in Geneva and New York, etc. And so we appreciate many of the positions they take. But like if you take the Somali refugees issue now, which is very much linked to their role at the international level as well. So yesterday I met with Hassan in the central police station here, who is a Somali refugee. He's a young boy of 30 or so. Again, a terrorism sort of charge somewhere hanging. It's not a charge, I mean a sort of hint that he's been involved in some terrorist issues. No real charge. The charge that he's been put into the police station initially, and he's now been there for 11 months, was about illegal entry. Now again, you're in a situation here where, so they want to deport him back to Somalia. But there is this principle of non-refoulement, which is, and the governments have to be compliant with that principle, which is that if there is any threat, and to send, and I think he's a Christian boy, you don't want to send him into Somalia because you know that he's going to be at risk.